Everyone, this whole room is on audience. This whole just got conversations and something really matters. Silence. My nephew just made sergeant. What is he? Marine. He gets respect. Just didn't share. It was the BT. And it cares in the many petty. It's true. West Coast, East Coast,
I want to pretend.
barracks.
Because
Yes, I will hold this ship. How long have you gone? 9 months. Here's why you're. That's true. Sometimes season actively. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Town of Santan Valley Council on this day, October 15th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We'll start with the roll call from our town clerk.
Mayor Smith,
Present.
Vice Mayor Hudgens,
Present.
Councilmember Hunt,
Present.
Councilmember Jenkins, Councilmember Oaks,
Present.
Councilmember Tyler,
Present.
Councilmember Wolfer. There is a quorum.
Thank you. With the quorum present, we'll go into our Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like, please stand and follow us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So now we'll proceed with an invocation, and we'll do so by Pastor Ben Lee. Please come forward.
Thank y'all so much for allowing me to be part of this. It's an exciting time, very exciting time. Let's please pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this monumental time, Lord, of being able to see the council come together, to see a town incorporated. Father, I ask that you would give wisdom to everyone, every council member, give them wisdom, give them your insight as they continue to make decisions and rule this area with your wisdom and your guidance, Father God. Watch over them, protect them all, protect all of their families, and let tonight be a night of just great talks, Lord, and peace over this meeting. We ask all this in your precious name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Lee. Okay, we'll go to our next item, which is item 4. It's the approval of minutes. We'll have a discussion and possible action to approve the minutes from our October 1st, 2025 regular town council meeting. Is there any discussion on the meetings before we have a motion? Any at all? Okay, with hearing none, is there a motion to accept our meeting notes from October 1st, 2025?
I move that we accept the meeting notes from October 1st, 2025.
From the regular town council meeting. We have a motion from Council Member Oaks. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second from Council Member Hunt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We will have our first notes recorded. Okay, this will bring us to item number 5, current events. This is a time for us to kind of discuss some brief moments or activities or things that have happened in the community. I want to read this. To comply with open meeting laws, it's important to note that the council cannot engage in discussion or take legal action during this item. Rather, this agenda item is intended solely to give each council member the opportunity, if they choose, to separately share a brief update on current events or community matters. So we'll go kind of down the road, starting off with Councilmember Hunt, if he has anything that he'd like to share or not.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have two things I'd like to bring up if I may. The first one is just a reminder, Supervisor Goodman mentioned this last time. I think he may bring it up again, but this coming Saturday, the 18th, is the bike rodeo for Pinal County. It's at the Home Depot here in Santa Ana Valley. So if I remember correctly, about 18 months ago, I don't remember the last one. That was the last one. About 18 months ago, they had their activity. There were a bunch of bikes. There was a obstacle course and things for the kids. And I think if we're lucky enough, Supervisor Goodman might be riding a bicycle around the obstacle course again. But there's a video on that on the Pinal County web YouTube. Anyway, it's kind of this Saturday at the Home Depot from 10 to 2. So I invite people to come out to that. The other one I just wanted to bring up and is we've had a lot of rain recently, which I appreciate, but also with rain comes the flooding. And just as a reminder for the citizens of the county, the county does provide sandbags available for the folks of Santa Ana Valley if you wish to get some. If you wanted to, the closest one I'm aware of is just on Hunt Highway. You go towards Florence, just past Copper Basin on the right-hand side. There's a yard with the heavy equipment and there's piles of sand. You can go in there during business hours and you can shovel up your own sandbags. The bags are provided, but they ask you bring us a shovel of your own. When I was there a few months ago, there was already a shovel there, but I was able to fill up a bunch of bags and take them home with me of the sand. So the sand is there for the residents. So if there's any potential flooding, that's a resource available to the residents of Santa Ana Valley. That is all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jenkins.
I would like to bring up the fact that council members Wolford and Schnepp, we all went to the grand opening of the Winco. So that was exciting to see the store open and all the people, and it was exciting, and it's a much needed commercial project that we were able to open up here. So it's amazing. And I was going to reiterate that Hunt already touched on it about, with the flooding and all of that, with our sister communities in Gila County. I'm just hoping they'll be okay and get through this tough time.
Thank you. Councilmember Oaks.
Just to repeat on the flooding, I had several phone calls from people thinking I would know how to help them volunteer and help somebody that needed help with flooding, and I pointed them to other resources. So I'm excited for the day where we can point them to our own resource to be helpful, but just keeping in mind the people who had some damage and some other things, especially people up north of us. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Tyler.
Just this week, I'll be attending the elections facility for Pinal County, get a tour of that facility. So I'm looking forward to that. But I think everyone else has pretty much said everything else.
Excuse me, can you guys use a mic or something? It's a little hard to hear some of you.
Yeah, I'll just speak louder if that helps. I
If there's a
mumble.
mic, it would be great. Thank you. Please, thank you.
I said I'll be touring the elections facility at Pinal County this Tuesday. So have a little tour there and see all the processes and how it's done this week. But I think all the other council members have touched on everything else I wanted to say.
Okay, Councilmember Wolford.
Again, just looking back at recent events, both Mayor Schnepp and myself attended the Pinal County 150th birthday celebration. Wanted to extend a congratulations to the county on a well-run event. Had a wonderful time. Families enjoyed it. And really such a great observance for our wonderful county celebrating 150 years. Only other event on my schedule will be at the Arizona City County Management Association Conference tomorrow at ASU SkySong. Hope to bring back some really valuable lessons for our growing town. So thank you.
Vice Mayor Hutchins.
I had the opportunity to attend Central Arizona College's Fall Festival, which was a really great family event. I took my family to that. I think it was just a great moment for the community to be able to come together in this season, and I thought that was really great. It was also great exposure for businesses, getting out there and allowing the community to interact with them. They had some fun science experiments that were really cool. Madagascar cockroaches, food trucks, and Rural Metro was there with a fire truck letting the kids. I know cockroaches aren't that fun, but these were not too bad. Madagascar ones are not too bad. And so Rural Metro was giving kids, opportunity to be able to see on the fire truck, which was awesome. And then last time we shared that the Arizona League of Cities and Towns has a website or page for us that we post our meeting minutes and all that stuff. We've updated our URL, santanvalley.gov, to forward. So if you type that, it'll take you straight to that page. So it'll be an easy way to access it instead of having to Google.
Is that spelled out, Santan Valley?
.gov.
So I know Supervisor Goodman at our last meeting indicated it, but there's a Halloween trunk or treat and farmers market event coming up October 25th. Just want to put that as a reminder. That's at the Combs High School from 6 to 9 p.m. So if you're available that night, maybe stop by and you could probably gather some great things that they'll be providing over there. I did want to mention that I had the opportunity this Monday to go out with Supervisor Goodman, and we were able to kind of go in parts of Santan Valley that kind of have been affected by the flooding and kind of seeing the challenges that are there to some of our neighbors and our citizens. And so that was a good opportunity to see some of the things that the county is working on, by the way, and they've got on their radar to try to get addressed, while we'll be able to help with that moving forward. And we were able to kind of go around and look at some of the transportation possibilities that will be happening in Santan Valley. So with that, that's all I have. So thank you, council members, for your updates. Okay, that'll bring us to item 6A. This is a presentation and discussion regarding the Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool. That's AMRRP, and proposed insurance policies. This will be a presentation by Ed Bantel, AMRRP Program Administrator. I hope I said your name right.
Yes.
It'll be an overview regarding the AMRRP, including the member benefits, coverage, options, and summary of the proposed insurance policies for the town. Mr. Bantel.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I really do appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with you. I've been working with AMRP for 24 years. And over that 24 years, I've been contacted periodically by various people about possible incorporation for Santan. So I'm very delighted to see that it's actually finally happened. That's wonderful. Do you want me to use that?
Yes.
Yes, please. There's a microphone up there for you.
Does this work? How about this? Okay, so I'm here with Holly Mercurio. She is our senior underwriter. She'll do some of the presentation too about your specifics. She'll be working with her a lot. Holly and I have been working together for 20 years on the different municipalities, so we've got quite a bit of experience with insurance for cities and towns. So let me tell you a little bit about the Arizona Risk Retention Pool. It was founded in 1987. It was started because there was a time when people were having difficulty, cities and towns were having difficulty finding insurance. It was either prohibitively expensive or just not even available. And the different cities and towns went to the league and were looking for an alternative. And the league contacted Southwest Risk, who I work for, and we created the AMRP. It was actually the state created it by statute, but we started the pool. So it's kind of started off as an alternative during an insurance crisis, and now it's become really the largest insurer of municipalities in the state. With if you guys join, it'd be 79 cities and towns out of the 92. What makes the AMRP different is it's a nonprofit risk sharing pool. It's not an insurance company. And some of the benefits that we believe is that it's, first of all, it's governed by a board of directors that the members elect. There's a 9 board member, and in order to be on the board, you either have to be an employee or a council person from one of our members. And there's always 2 positions that come up for renewal every year. And we send out we request for nominations, and we send out ballots, and we do a vote. And at the league conference in August, that's where we announce the new directors and the new board. So the nice thing about this is when there's issues about coverage or claims, the ultimate authority is with this board, who are made up of people just like yourselves that can make these decisions. We have a manuscript script coverage. We don't use standard insurance policies. We kind of base our program off of them. So we have made them customized for the individual needs of cities and towns. Sometimes we have to do some odd things. Like, for example, we had a town that was using one of their police vehicles, and there was a guy who had robbed a store, was running away, and he had a gun, and the police officer used his car to push him up against the wall. And when the claim came in about that. And if you looked at the insurance policy, there's an exclusion for hitting people with your cars. So we had to change the exclusion and make an exception for the police vehicles. So these are the kinds of things that we can do as a risk pool. And every time something comes up, if one of you ever tells us that you want to see a change, we make the change, we name it after the city or the town that requests the change. We have extensive risk management programs. Early on, AMRP decided that it was better off to provide loss control services and help our cities and towns become better risks than it was to just keep on paying money for claims. So there's a lot of different resources that you have available. And the nice thing about it is at the end of the year, if we've collected, hopefully we've collected enough money to pay the claims. And if the claims are less than what we expected, any of that extra money goes back to the members in dividends. This year we had bad claims, we didn't give a dividend, but for the last 7 years, we've been giving between $5 to $10 million back every year to the membership. And so that's kind of a nice thing about it too, that you have the opportunity to get some of the premium back with dividends. So we provide policy services. We function as the agent and the underwriter. So we take care of all the AMRP coverages that you need, which is very comprehensive. And then as you grow, you may have other needs that AMRP doesn't provide. We can provide things for you that AMRP can't, such as we can do notary bonds when you have to get somebody notarized. If you have underground fuel tanks that you need to insure eventually, these types of things, we can also take care of that for you. So it's one-stop shopping, regardless of whether or not AMRP provides the coverage. We have risk management services. We have a risk manager, Patty Fields, is in this part of the state. She will be assigned to you, and she will help you with any kind of risk problems that you might have going down the road as you get established. And then we have a complete claims department that handles the property casualty claims and also covers all of the workers' compensation claims. These are some of the benefits I was telling you about that AMRP puts the money into. Some of it is free legal advice. The PAL program, we call it the Personnel Assistance Lifeline. This is an opportunity for people to call in and get advice on employment issues when you're trying to make a decision. It might be a hiring, it might be a firing. And our firm here that you're working with is the firm that you get referred to. They also would handle EEOC complaints and ACID complaints if you ever get them. No cost to you. You're not there yet, but when you are, we have legal advice for legal assistance for law enforcement, which is a big thing. Land use, you might get into a land use type of a situation. We have free legal advice for that, for zoning issues and questions you might have along those lines. Then we have complementary services. Vector, when you get staffing and you need to do training, you need to do bloodborne pathogen training, you need to do driver's training, you need to do all those types of things. That's all online. It's all free to you to use. HR Sentry and Quiron is something that you may need down the road. It's for HR people, and that does is it gives you easy access to all the federal laws, the state laws, job descriptions. It gives you salary ranges. You can do a complete employee manual through the system. So that's all the things you have to eventually post for at the lunch areas for workers' comp. You can download all the posters, everything that you need for HR is available through that. Again, you're not there yet, but we have a certificate of insurance management program. That's Holly's baby. When you are collecting certificates of insurance from people and requesting them, it's a major job. And this system will kind of do that for you. It will track your certificate, send out reminders to vendors that they need to update them. They'll let you know if they meet your requirements or not. Safety Source, that's just more training videos. And the AMRP member forum, that is just for, it's a website, or it's an email that AMRP members can put questions out for. We found out that our AMRP members are one of our greatest resource, so if you were to have a question about something, let's say you have a swimming pool for the first time and you want to know about lifeguards, you can put the question on the forum and they'll all send you, they'll all respond, they'll send you their policies, their procedures, all that kind of thing. So this is just kind of an overview on all the different coverages. Some of them won't really apply to you right away, but eventually they will. Products completed operations is part of the general liability policy. We have coverage for each occurrence well, each occurrence we have there's two different parts of the coverage. One, and she's going to talk about this more. One is general liability. General liability is when there's property damage or bodily injury, like somebody slips and falls on the sidewalk or something like that. And then the errors and omissions is professional liability. That would be like an employment claim, or if you had a police department, it'd be allegations of wrongful termination, excessive force, and those types of coverages are covered under those two different parts of the coverage policy. Medical payments, that's if somebody were to say trip and fall and break their glasses, you're not at fault for it, but you just want to take care of their glasses for them, just to do a good deed kind of thing. You can just offer to make the payments for their medical bills up to the limit and or something like that. Back wages, that comes involved with an employment claim. If there's a claim for back wages, they're generally not covered by most insurance policies, but AMRP does have a sublimit for back wages if that's part of a claim to help get something settled. Fire legal damage is part of a general liability policy. That would be if you were to be renting a space from somebody and cause a fire, it would cover that. Land use liability. That's again the zoning. If you were to get into a lawsuit, maybe you did something in the zoning and somebody objected to, or you didn't grant something or anything along those lines. That's what the land use liability would cover. Organic pathogens, we're talking basically mold, things like that. Pollution liability, there's some limited coverage for pollution. Sewer backups, we have a couple of different sewer backups. If you are responsible for the sewers and there's something wrong with your sewer and the sewer backs up, then we would, cover the claim. We also have what we call no fault sewer, which is a limited amount of coverage, but that's when it's not your fault, but you still want to help the homeowner out and help them get cleaned up. You can do that as well. And then this has become a big thing, sexual and physical abuse, molestation, called SAM coverage. That's also added to the policy. And you will need that as you get involved in different groups and have to get different certificates of insurance. So auto, we have the basic auto coverage for now. For you, we're doing what we call hired and non-owned auto. That means if you're using your vehicles and you had an accident and you had insufficient limits to cover the claim, we will drop down on that. Once you have cars, we will have liability, comprehensive collision. We have what we call zero deductible for glass. So when you break a windshield, you just get the windshield fixed and send us the bill. And then we have these others: rental reimbursement, roadside assistance, towing, and trip interruption. So once you start getting vehicles, that coverage will, apply. Property. we'll talk a little bit, she'll talk a little bit more about what we've done, but these are all the different types of property coverages. Inland Marine is got all these different kinds of odd coverages. EDP is electronic data processing. So once you have computers or anything that's run by a computer, we cover it under this EDP coverage. Valuable papers, if you, then you don't have them yet, but if you were to have a loss and you had to recreate documents, it's the cost to recreate those documents. Accounts receivable, you may have some bad accounts sometimes that you can't get the reimbursement for, will be covered there. Fine arts, a lot of our cities and towns have local artists come in and they hang up their art in their buildings on display. And while they're on display, they're responsible for it. So that's what the fine arts is for. Service animals, that can be, some of our towns buy service dogs for different departments, and also covers things like canine that's from the police departments. Mobile equipment, you don't have that yet, but that's things like backhoes, things like that. That's what you when you accumulate that. Miscellaneous equipment, again, when you start to grow, you'll have that. Miscellaneous equipment stuff that is not really assigned to one spot but moves around. Tools, generators, things like that. Trailers that are not licensed for the road is miscellaneous equipment. And then signs, you're going to find out that people are going to run into stop signs and light poles and things like that and knock them down. So we have coverage for that. Then there's the crime policy. There's employee theft. There's forgery. Theft inside, theft outside the buildings, computer fraud and funds transfer. That is one of the biggest areas right now. There's two different coverages there, computer fraud and funds transfer. Funds transfer, and this has happened a couple of times, is when one of your employees is transferring funds to your bank account, or they think they are, and it turns out to be a phishing site, and the claims go into cyberspace. That's a honest employee who got hacked. The fraud is a dishonest employee who has been siphoning money from your account into their account, and we've seen a lot of that. And then the faithful performance bond, that's the bond you have to have. Is when the state talks about having that bond, that's the bond that you have that you're required to have by the state, and that's part of the policy too. And then we also provide cyber coverage again, for when you're up and running, and if you get hacked, we've had everyone hacked, or then you get shut down, or data gets out, damaging data gets out. Those types of claims are covered by the cyber policy. MRP also provides workers' compensation. Workers' compensation covers all of these, and it covers employees as you hire them. And at your discretion, it can cover volunteers. And so that's what we do with the workers' comp is at the end of each quarter, we'll be sending your contact persons a sheet that fills out the payroll. And then we calculate the premium based on your actual payroll. So we don't have to do audits and stuff at the end. You just send us in what you actually, that's how we calculate your payroll. We have a company called Triage Now that doesn't really handle our claims, but that's where the claims get started. So when you have an employee who gets, or one of your spouse, were to get injured, you call Triage Now. Triage Now is a nursing, they have full-time nurses 24/7. And what they'll do is they'll take all the information about the claim. And then depending on the nature of the injury, they'll direct the care. Sometimes it's just a small paper cut and they'll just handle it as a first aid. It doesn't even become a claim. If they do have to go to the doctor, and you have the option of picking a doctor for the first visit, they will guide that employee to the doctor. They'll call ahead, they'll give them all the information about the claim. They will complete the first report of injury. They will send that to you. They'll send it to the state. They immediately download the claim into our system. So we're on it in 10 or 15 minutes of the claim happening. So that's been a really good program. The employees like being able to talk to a nurse and get good medical guidance. Now, this is a summary of the policy that we are proposing to you. I'm going to turn it over to Holly because you're going to be working, she put a lot of this together and you'll be working with her a lot as you grow and have to make changes.
State your name for the record.
My name is Holly Vicario. Mayor, I appreciate this time talking to you guys as well, council. So your policy is made up of, you have two policies currently. There's a package policy and then there's the workers' comp policy. So we're going to talk about the package policy first. So under general liability, you have a $2 million per claim with a $6 million aggregate. So these are for your third party claims. So these are for claims that people would buy a notice of claim saying, alleging that you did something and they file a claim for. So again, you have $2 million per claim, the $6 million aggregate. Currently, we have our lowest deductible assigned to the quote we provided to you, which is $1,000 per claim. We review these every year. It's kind of a discussion. As you grow, sometimes you want to take on a little more risk or you're like, oh, we're happy where we are. But we look at your claims, we look at the statistics of where you are to make sure that it's fitting right where you need to be. Next is your errors and omission, which also falls under general liability with that $2 million occurrence with a $6 million aggregate. This covers all of your professional decisions. So like once you have a police department, their decisions also covers all of you and all of your decisions. So somebody could file a claim against the council for say they believed you did something, they'll file a claim. That's the coverage that would cover you as a council is your E&O coverage. The next is your hired on own. As Ed said, you currently don't have any autos, so we just have hired on own on the policy suggested. And that would cover any claim that if you had an auto claim, if you're doing business work, your auto policy is primary. And then if there was an excess limit, then our policy would come down on top. And that has a $2 million per occurrence limit. Currently, we have a $0 deductible on that coverage as well. Again, we have multiple options that we will look at. Property. This covers things that you will lease or will own in the future. So this policy will continue to grow. Like every month, you guys will be growing exponentially. So it's going to be a lot of communication as well, because every day you'll be buying something new that we will need to cover to make sure you're protecting your assets as a municipality. You do have a full cyber policy, first and third party. So it covers, again, if you have a data breach where it releases citizens' information and we have to do the notification systems and things like that, your policy fully covers that, as well as if you had you had a hack and you had a cyber malware attack or things like that, we instantly have a company that works on that with you instantaneously to get you guys back up and running as soon as possible. Again, under your policy, you do have the crime coverages, which are state required. Your faithful performance bond, currently you do have a limit of $100,000, as well as a specific faithful performance bond for the treasurer at $100,000. Again, this provides financial assurance and accountability for employees or members of council for your assets. For workers' compensation, again, this is required by the state. It does cover all of you. So if you knock on all the wood, I have seen a council member trip and fall at the ACMA and things like that. It would cover any of your injuries as well for that, as well as your clerk. Even at volunteer status, if you elect to be volunteer until you have actual employees, would cover any injuries that would arise out of working. So currently we have your policy being effective as of your 9/17/25 through 6/30. So we have a short-term policy because that way we know on 7/1 you will be getting your state funding, which will affect your policy. So we moved it to a short-term policy for then it matches better with budget season. Again, your effective date can be up to you. You can keep it at 9/17 as well, and we can address that at any time to go over what you would like to do. Currently, the total premium for this entire comprehensive package will be $10,374 with the limits stated. Your workers' comp policy has no premium at this point in time because it's only based on payroll. Council's automatically included. We do have to put $1 in there for payroll because we have to have something to activate the policy. So that will only, premium will only generate once you actually have actual employees. And then again, as we stated, coverage will be constantly changing as you grow. So it's going to be a lot of communication between your staff and council and us, as you get new buildings, as you lease new buildings. If you're going to events and they want you to be name them additionally insured, that's us. We name you additionally insured, you send them a certificate of insurance, and we issue that for you guys as well.
Yeah.
This is our contact information. Again, we are here for all and any questions. We service, as Ed said, 78, possibly 79 members. We do this every day. We talk all the questions. We like the questions. There is no question too small to ask because we find that the questions that you may be asking are questions others need to know. So we're very collaborative in that factor. Our website has all the information as well. We do have a comprehensive claim staff that's all in-house. We all are in the same building. We talk all the time. So there's always instant, if you guys have questions like, hey, I don't understand this. Who do I need to talk to? It's reaching out to us. We'll get you into contact with the right person right away. Really our customer focus, our member focus is our most important. Do you have any other?
Unless there's any questions?
Yes, questions, anything?
One question.
Of course.
On your summary of the policy, it says 9/17/25 to 6/30/25. I'm assuming that was 26.
That is a typo.
Okay, no, I assume.
Yeah, that's type. Well, sorry about that.
That's my
Total
savings.
premium, that's a total premium for that period, not a monthly premium.
That is the annual, that is your short-term 7-month period, yes. Grand total.
Yeah. So the question is like every year, based on everyone's claims, is that how the premium gets adjusted yearly?
No.
Okay, or is it per?
So
I mean, we'll add on to that as we grow, but does it adjust because of everyone?
it's kind of a combination of things. So it's based primarily on your exposures and your losses. That's the number one goal. Again, as a member of the pool, we do have to look at the overall rates to make sure we're adequate for we can fund all the things and do all the things. Now, again, as Ed said, we've issued dividends besides this year for the last 10 years and some almost $65 million combined. So we do a really good job to make sure everyone is adequately funded, but it's really more based on your individual exposures as well as your losses. And so the overall picture is a minor spot.
One of the actual goals of AMRP is to try to be, consistent. We try to wipe out the spikes, so we tweak the rates and we try. Now you're going to change a lot because you're going to be adding buildings and cars, it's going to be, for a while, it's going to be, a lot. But we basically, our rates have gone up or down 3, 4, 5% in a year.
I would say on average, the increase, and then again, we insure really small towns to all the way up to our largest town, which is Surprise. And the average increase is including their exposure increase, is about under 10% average over the last 10 years. So it's very consistent and it's what it is on every year. So it's easily budgeted, which is the most important thing. I will tell you, every finance director I've ever talked to, as well as any council, that this steady, easy things we can predict makes your life so much easier.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. If I may, Mr. Bantel, I think you mentioned that there were 70-something municipalities that currently use your services out of the 92.
Yeah, there's 77 cities and towns plus the league, so 78
Okay.
members.
The ones that don't, I'm assuming that they have coverage through a different company or they do something differently.
All but 3 of them are really too big. They're self-insured. And, we don't have Tucson or Phoenix or, and there's 3 others that are our size that have different brokers and agents and just decided to do something different.
And what do you feel is your advantage? I mean, if going with you, what do you offer that's different than what other brokers would?
Well, we don't pay commission to us for starters, so we can do a little bit better on the policy. You won't get any of those services I was talking about, you know, the PAL program, the free legal service, the online training, the HR Century, all of that stuff is MRPPS for. You wouldn't get any of that with a traditional broker. And the other thing is, it's your company, you know, and we work for you. There's things like when you have a accident on a car and you report it to the claims department, and they come to me and they say they never reported that car, not on the policy. You back it and stick it on, you know, things like that. That probably most traditional insurance companies, you know, wouldn't do.
Okay. One other comment, if I may, you're talking about the Vector Solutions training. I'm very familiar with that. Pinal County uses, they go through ASIP, but they also use Vector Solutions, safe personnel training, and just
the same program.
Okay. I'm very familiar with that in my position with Pinal County, and I find it, you know, there's limitations to it, but I do find it's very effective in providing employee training. So just so the other council members know it, the county is able to provide annual training, bloodborne pathogen training, vehicle safety. If there's a new policy that comes out, they can roll it out and make it available to all of the employees, sexual harassment training and so on. So every time there's a new hire, we enroll them and they automatically get training that they have to complete in 30 days. There's annual training that has to be done. So I'm very familiar with that, and it does a very good job from covering the bases and helping to reduce risk, helping to reduce those things by giving that training to the employees.
One of the things in it is that ASIP and MRP work very closely together. Yeah, so we find something, we share stuff a lot. We do training programs together. We actually have joint defense agreements with the county. We've had situations where there's like a SWAT team or something, and it involves a county and maybe several of our AMRP members. And so we kind of work together to sort out and present a united front and handling the claims. So we work very, very closely with ASIP. And that's it's been kind of nice for the counties and for the legal defense.
Mr. Mayor.
Any other council members have any questions? At all? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
So much.
Okay, with that, that's going to move us to item number 6B. This will be discussion and possible adoption of resolution 2025-0202, authorizing the town to become a member of the Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool, and that's AMRRP, and secure insurance coverage through AMRRP. And I would note that this item is related to that presentation that was just presented, Mr. Banto's company, and what was presented to us in the staff report. So is there any discussion on this item from the council members? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion on the table for resolution number 2025-02?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2025-02, authorizing the town of Santan Valley to become a member of the Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool and to authorize the mayor and/or town attorney to execute all necessary agreements and related documents to secure insurance coverage for the town and effectuate AMRRP membership.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have a second from Member Wolfert. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
We now have 79
Nine
members. Thank you.
We're the 92nd town, now we're the 79th.
And it's interestingly enough, you are probably the third largest member in the pool.
Yes.
and-
Nice.
Instantaneously.
And with the smallest
With the smallest
premium.
Working on that. Appreciate it. Thank you. So this is going to move us on to item 6C, discussion and possible adoption of resolution 2025-03, authorizing the mayor to apply for and obtain an employer identification number, or EIN, on behalf of the town. Council discussion and possible action authorizing the mayor to obtain the EIN. which is required for opening organizational bank accounts, applying for federal and state grants, and complying with the IRS reporting requirement. I would note that this has been provided in the staff report to the council members. Do we have any discussion on this item? Any at all? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion regarding resolution number 2025-03?
I'll move to approve the resolution number 2025-03. The wrong one, I'm not sure. Authorizing the town mayor to obtain an EIN from the IRS for the town of Santan Valley.
We have a motion from member Jenkins. Do we have a second? We have a second from, I think I first heard from member Tyler. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, so the motion carries. Moving on to item number 6D. This is a discussion and possible adoption of resolution number 2025-04, authorizing designated town officials to establish banking services and execute all related documents. Council discussion and possible action authorizing the mayor, the vice mayor, town clerk, and future town manager, assistant manager, and town finance director to open and manage town financial accounts with Wells Fargo NA. And this also, I will note, has been provided to us in the staff report to the council members. Is there any discussion from the members on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I just have one question, if I may.
Member Hunt.
I just was wondering why Wells Fargo, and were there any other options?
We'll defer that to legal.
Certainly, Mayor, Councilmember Hunt, there are other banking options. Wells Fargo is one that's used by the county and some other municipalities. It's one that there's several other entities that are actively using them. If we were to move forward with them, it would be under a cooperative agreement, meaning that other municipalities, we'd have similar pricing terms as other municipalities. And yeah, so we reached out to them. They were referred to us by the county. I was working with the treasurer's office. The county level recommended we use Wells Fargo. That's who we move forward with. But certainly you're not required to bank with Wells, and there's other options if that's something the council would like to pursue.
Thank you. I didn't really have a preference. I just was wondering if there was an advantage to that or a reason why. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none from the council. Is there a motion for resolution number 2025-04?
I move to approve resolution number 2025-04, authorizing designated town officials to establish banking services with Wells Fargo Bank NA and to execute all necessary documents and agreements to open and maintain town financial accounts.
Councilmember Wolford has put a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from member Hunt. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving to the next item, which is item 6E. This is a presentation discussion regarding municipal elections. Presenter Christina Estes Werther, said that right, with the town attorney's firm, will provide a presentation on governing municipal election laws, Arizona election dates and processes, majority votes cast requirements, staggered terms, direct election of mayor, and prohibition on the use of public resources to influence elections. Ms. Estes Werther.
And Mayor, if I might interject just for a moment here, I know Christine is not going to toot her own horn, but when it comes to election issues, she is one of, if not the top, one amongst the very top attorneys in Arizona. She does a lot of election work with all of our clients. Whenever election issues come up, we will refer them to Christina because it's a very niche area of the law and she knows it and she's really an expert in this field. So I'm excited to have her here and present to you guys on election matters.
We like subject matter experts.
Well, thank you, Alan, and thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm really excited to be here. This is very exciting to share some election information with all of you. I wanted to make sure that you know that the presentation does include all of the sort of next 3 items, which are the 2 ordinances and the resolution. So we're going to cover all of that in this one presentation, as well as some just general election information. But I also wanted to let you know that you don't have to take action tonight on any of the ordinances or resolutions for elections. I know it's a lot of information. We wanted to prepare it so you could see how it was structured, but certainly you're likely to have questions and you may want to even just table it. And we have time. We can wait until the next meeting to bring it back to you. So I just wanted to kind of preface with that. So because again, it's a lot of information. So I'll go ahead and get started. Please feel free. I do a lot of trainings, and so I'm comfortable if you have questions midway. I think you guys have all sort of seen it ahead of time, so you kind of probably know there might be questions answered down the road, but certainly please let me know if you'd like me to stop and answer a question. So the agenda today just kind of touch on some governing laws, the election dates in Arizona, again, the ordinance for majority votes cast, basically how do you declare your winners, also the candidate election processes and just considerations for you. We'd like to get some direction on a couple items. Staggered terms, that resolution, the direct election of mayor ordinance, and then again, the prohibition on your use of public resources to influence an election. So it is a lot of information to cover. Again, this is kind of just a general picture overview. I can always come back, or we can always come back and have more in-depth conversations as needed. So for governing laws, I'm not going to walk through every single federal law here. I just wanted to include some of them so that you're just aware how much federal laws actually impact our elections here in Arizona. So we obviously sort of have multi-layer, federal election laws that dictate certain things that, we can't change, right? We have to follow that federal law, and you'll kind of see later in the presentation how that impacts your elections. And then next we have obviously state and local laws. So state elections are governed by our Arizona Constitution, also Title 16, which is all the elections and elector provisions. Title 19 has your initiative, referendum, and recall provisions. And then we also have the State Elections Procedures Manual. So that's actually a document that is authorized by statute for the Secretary of State's office to work with all the counties. And they've actually are kind of towards the end of that process. They do it in odd numbered years. And so they work with the counties to sort of update everything that's happening legislatively, case law, all of that, just even general processes to help for better best practices and efficiencies. And so they work through that. It goes through a public comment period, and then it's submitted to the Attorney General and the governor for approval. And so once approved, then that manual is in effect, and by law, it has the force and effect of law. So we do have to obviously follow that manual as well. Local elections, Title 9 is your provision, right, for city and town elections. So there are some provisions in there. I did just mention city charter here, but obviously that doesn't apply to you. But sometimes the questions come up of why maybe a different city can do something else. Most often it's because they're a charter, and so they have that ability to deviate from state law, whereas you're a general law town, and so you cannot. So that's partly why I included this here, because I want so for everyone to understand, general law really means that you have to follow the state statute. So and the Constitution, there isn't any ability for you to deviate from the statute. Again, unlike a charter city, which may have adopted a charter and some governing documents that allow them for areas of purely municipal local interest that they can deviate from state law. Again, it's still pretty limited for them, but we see it most often in elections. But for you, as a general law town, we just have to follow state statute. So election dates, there are 4 in Arizona, and this is not how it used to be. It used to be that you could call an election within, usually it was like a 30-day time frame, and this was way back, decades ago when things were a little more simpler, less complex. The legislature decided they only wanted 4 dates throughout the year that you could call an election, and then you can only call it for certain purposes. So we'll kind of talk about which each of those are. But there's the second Tuesday in March, the third Tuesday in May, first Tuesday in August, which I think we're all most familiar with as the primary election date, and then the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, which again, that's a federal law requirement. So the state law just kind of mirrors that, but that's the general election date. So this is a question that we've heard a lot. I think people are obviously really interested to know, when can the first council be elected? So can it be in May or August? And we have 2 competing statutes here. If you look at that Title IX, which is specific to cities and towns, you look at it and it clearly says it's the 3rd Tuesday in May. That's the date that you can go ahead and have your election. However, we have the 16204 provision, and this is again Title 16. This is the general conduct of election laws, and it has this provision that's called, it's a notwithstanding clause. So it says notwithstanding any other law, and then it basically spells out that you can only have your regular candidate election on that first Tuesday in August, which is the primary election date. And so we did look carefully at this because, again, we know it's an important question, and that, there was some interest in trying to get this first council election done earlier. Obviously the notwithstanding clause is an exception to existing law. So if you see a notwithstanding clause, it basically means whatever is coming after it supersedes everything else, right? And this is a legislative intent and policy. They want that statute to prevail over anything that might conflict. And so 16204 is also the most recent law. The legislature has made a lot of changes, I would say, over the past decade. We've seen changes to this statute, almost strengthening it, right? They wanted to be clear. They only want regular candidate elections on that August date. The biggest reason in a lot of the committee testimony is because of voter turnout. If you have it on that primary election date, they've seen that there's evidence that there's just more people that are voting, right? Because it's coinciding with the statewide election, whether it's for statewide races, and then later that general election date, every 4 years obviously is for president. So that's just when we naturally see the highest turnout, and they want to see high turnout even for local elections. So that's part of the policy decision behind why the legislature is, again, sort of emphasized that the 16204 statute prevails over anything else. Again, we did try to look at the legislative history of the Title IX statute just to see if we could find something to kind of help us, justify a May election. Again, it actually looked like overall that statute was weakened. It used to have a little bit language that was stronger. And then eventually, the ADA had its own notwithstanding clause that was removed. And then it actually started just referring to the 16204. So ultimately it's, 16204 that prevails. And so the other item we looked at is whether or not we could sort of fit you into a vacancy, right? Because if you have a vacancy, you can technically call a special election on the May date, but it's not a vacancy, right? A vacancy is defined in Title 38. That does not apply to this first council election. And so therefore it does not apply, as well as obviously it's not a recall election. So we did, like I said, kind of walk through all of the different statutes, trying to see if there was anything, against if we could justify a May date. We really couldn't. This other Title IX statute really does say too that we're really supposed to conform all of our election laws, right, with essentially the state general conduct of elections, which is that Title 16. So ultimately, the conclusion is really that your first election date is going to be August 4th on 2026 next year.
They're stuck with us till August.
Yes, they are. They are. Yeah. So I didn't know if any of you had any questions about that piece before I jump into the next one.
Would you rather use the mic? I know it's kind of,
I'm fine. Yeah, if you don't mind.
I know it's just.
I know it's kind of awkward. I'm actually more comfortable with it if it works.
It's on.
Does it work? Can you hear me okay?
No, now it's not working.
Here, I'm gonna. I feel like that was going in and out.
Testing.
Battery?
Attorneys can't do everything.
I can keep using this until someone comes back.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question on that August 4th election. If the when would the newly elected town council take office if the election is August 4th?
So that depends on actually kind of this next piece too, on when someone is declared elected. Because if you have this ordinance that we're going to talk about, if you have someone who's reached the majority votes cast, and so they've reached that majority, then they're declared elected for that seat. The statute says by that general election date is when you would seat the council. But if you need to go to a runoff, which would be the November date, then it's likely going to be December. So it's dependent if they win in August versus November. I did also want to mention that there is some discussion about a couple years ago, they needed to change the primary election date to account for some issues with the recount. There wasn't enough time to get recounts done, and so they had to move the primary election date. They might have to do that again next year because that was just a temporary fix a couple years ago. So that date might change. It might move up about a week. That's what they did 2 years ago. We don't know. If they make the change, it'll likely be January, February, and it'll be emergency legislation. So just to keep that in mind, it could technically move up 1 or 2 weeks. Okay, so majority votes cast. So again, I just wanted, and I'm basically at this point just walking through the ordinance too, so that you can, when you see it, hopefully it all makes sense. So the first part is the conduct of elections, which again is just reaffirming what we already is in statute, right? State law is what governs the elections for the town. Election dates, right? That your primary and general is going to be every 2 years, again, consistent with the state. And on that first Tuesday in August is the primary, and then the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November is the general. Non-political ballot, again, this is also in statute. So our city town elections are nonpartisan, right? So there's not going to be any political affiliation on any of the ballots. And again, that's per state law. You can't change that. Conduct of election, oh, sorry, so that one, primary election. So this is the statutory formula to help determine who's the winner, or if you can even declare a winner at the primary. So this statute is actually very helpful. It's gone through various iterations over the past couple decades, and I think this is the one that works the best. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking the total votes cast for everybody that's running for office, and then you're dividing it by the number of seats that are on the ballot. And then you're dividing it by 2. That's how you reach your majority votes cast number. So I had some examples here. And again, this is just random, just so you know, I didn't necessarily base it on anything. It was more just trying to come up with like a math formula to show you how it would work. So 7 council seats, right, are going to be open in August of 2026. Let's say you had 18 candidates running. And let's say there were 16,000 total votes cast for everybody. So you divide that 16 by the 7 open seats, and then you divide by 2. So the 1,143 would be the majority of votes cast. So that's what someone would have to reach in order to attain that threshold. And then there's a couple different scenarios. And again, this is all from state law. This is embedded in that ordinance. So if no candidate receives a majority of votes cast, you just take basically twice the number of seats to be filled, that number, and then those people go to the runoff. So the highest votes, so you take 14 basically for the 7 open seats, and those go to the runoff. And then the next scenario is, let's say maybe you had some that received a majority of votes cast, others didn't. So in this example, let's say that you get 7 seats open, you had 4 seats that still remain open after the primary. So maybe only 3 candidates actually got the majority votes cast. And then the others again, so you'd have 8 candidates that would proceed to the runoff for those remaining 4 seats. And then open seats, then it really is just the highest number, right? Because you hit that majority threshold, so then you're just taking the top 7 essentially. So that's kind of how the statute works. Again, once you get to the runoff, anybody who's in the runoff, it's just whoever gets the highest number of votes. And then if there's a tie, then it's determined by lot in the presence of the candidates. And just so you know, we have had ties in the past. So it does happen. And it's been either a coin toss, or maybe drawing a card, you know what I mean? Obviously, yeah, so it has happened a few times. And then also write-ins, again, this is part of the statute. A write-in is not allowed to advance to the general or runoff if they don't receive a certain number of votes. And that votes is tied to the number of petition signatures that a candidate who is circulating would have to get. And that was a legislative policy adopted probably about 6 or 7 years ago because they just wanted to make sure there was enough buy-in, right? If somebody was going to skip the circulation process and just go in as a write-in, they at least wanted them to have that same sort of minimum support from the community before they got elected. And again, we talked about the tie vote, how you determine that by lot. And then the canvass, state's law requires within 6 to 20 days after the election, you have to canvass your election results. And then this is a new piece that was just adopted a couple years ago by the legislature. It essentially just has to do with if you had a vacancy and then you had someone who was appointed to that term, and they, you know, sometimes they only, depending on when that vacancy occurs, let's say you end up having the 4-year terms. And if you had somebody who was withdrew, like, you know, they resigned within the first year. Well, technically they'd have 3 years left on their term, but the way that state law is structured, they would only serve until that next election. And then there'd be sort of a 2-year remainder term that would need to be filled. And so, and part of that again is the policy of the legislature is they prefer more elected rather than appointed sort of serving in that seat. And so what this part of the ordinance does, again, is sort of takes from the statute that if somebody is serving in that as an appointee, and somebody else is elected to that seat for the remainder, let's say 2-year term, then that person needs to, the appointee would step down sooner rather than later. So you wouldn't wait till sort of like seat everyone together. That newly elected would be seated essentially right away. So that's basically what this says. And then you have that option for if somebody is essentially what we call a new term. And what it really is though, is like, let's say someone actually, the vacancy was declared towards the end of that 4-year term. And so you had somebody who was appointed, but they really only had a year left anyway. And that election would have been for a new term. They only have a couple months left. And so the legislature has decided to that's your discretion, right? If you want to let someone serve for that remaining 2 months, or if did you want to put that newly elected in right away? So it's just reflective of the statute. Reasons to consider obviously using this method is frankly, it's been pretty well tested. Back in 2014, this particular version was adopted by the legislature as sort of temporary law. It was kind of almost a pilot program. The league worked on it along with the Maricopa County and then also the town of Gilbert. They had really advocated for this because, you know, city-town elections are very different from, you know, any type of partisan election. We don't have primaries, right? We're not nominating somebody to then run in a general. These are nonpartisan. They're usually at-large seats. And so what everyone was finding is that they were having essentially the same candidates were running through in the primary, but then having to run through in the general. Like it was just costing a lot more money essentially having 2 elections because nobody can reach that majority. They're just, the formulas weren't working. And so they devised this formula. They tested it out for the 2014 elections and really saw that it worked well for all the cities and towns. It actually avoided quite a few runoffs. And there are many towns where I have seen that they don't have runoffs. They haven't had runoffs for years. Everyone's elected at the first election. It's really easy. And then again, it kind of saves money. And so that was something that was seen as successful. And so it was adopted. So that's pretty much the majority votes cast ordinance. I know that again, that's a lot, and but it really has worked out pretty well. Does anybody have questions about that particular ordinance? So candidate election processes and considerations. I just wanted to run through again now that we kind of explained why we have to wait through the August election, sort of what happens now, right? What's next? So candidate filing, again, all this is statutory, right? We don't really have any ability to change it. So candidate filing starts 150 days to 120 days before that primary election date. So those are the dates here that we have. Technically, it starts on March 7th, but that's a Saturday. So it just moves into the March 9th. And then the last day to file is 5 p.m. on April 6th. And then there's a statutory candidate challenge period after the candidate filing. So it's 10 business days that anybody has to basically challenge your petitions, right? If you submit petitions. And it's an expedited court process. Usually it's within 1 to 2 weeks. The court concludes and makes a judgment because we have ballot deadlines. And so that needs to get resolved fairly quickly. So these are just, I'm not going to walk through them all, but these are the different types of forms that candidates have to file. And so this would be anybody who would be interested in running, they would get these from your clerk. Signature requirements. So this is where it actually became a little tricky because your signature requirements are based on your preceding election. And you haven't had one. And the statute is silent. It doesn't really have any guidance about what are you supposed to do if you haven't had a preceding election, because the number of signatures you're supposed to obtain is 5% to 10%, again, based on votes cast at a preceding election. So actually, Garrett did a great job and did a lot of research. And there is an attorney general opinion that kind of helped, I think, kind of give some guidance about what do you do when there's sort of a new district form. And so we kind of could look at that just to see how, you know, what we could use in order to obviously get the most accurate number of qualified electors in Santan so that we could use that as the basis. So this was the number that was calculated, which was 31,667 votes. So the 5% is 1,583. That's the minimum number that someone would have to get in order to actually have, you know, their name on the ballot. And then 10% is that 3,167. Now, I did want to let you know, and this is kind of where we would need some direction if you wanted us to bring something back to you. State law does provide an option where you can actually just set a threshold of 1,000. That would be your minimum. And there are some advantages to that. Obviously, votes cast fluctuates, right? And so sometimes you'll see, like, again, if you end up adopting down the road the staggered terms or the direct election of mayor, sometimes the year of the mayoral race is a little higher than maybe the other races. So it's going to fluctuate. And that does happen in all the other cities and towns, but you could at least always adopt that your minimum is just going to be 1,000. So that sometimes just makes it easier when in terms of calculations. So if you're interested in that option, we can bring that back to you, and because it does have to be adopted as an ordinance. I would suggest we would need to bring that back probably in sometime in November, because again, candidate filing is going to get started here soon. So we'd want people to know what is that minimum that they need to do. And then you have questions about signatures too, all the calculations. I'm going to defer to Garrett. Okay, and then the other part of that I would say is Equal, which this is a candidate portal that the Secretary of State developed. Gosh, actually probably was a little over a decade ago that we did. I remember doing we were in the pilot program when I was at the Secretary's office. And so it's basically allows qualified electors to electronically sign your candidate petitions. And it's actually really useful. And so the candidate can collect up to 110% of the minimum number that they need via Equal. Now, one thing I want to emphasize about this, it's completely voluntary, right? The candidates don't have to use it. They can just use the paper petitions, or they can use a mix of both. The qualified elector doesn't have to sign an electron. They don't have to do it. They could just sign paper petitions. So it's completely voluntary, but I think it's been well received at the state legislature. You can see how it's expanded to now obviously include cities and towns, I think because of the success of the program. The signatures are essentially good signatures because the system is set up for you to, put in your information as a signer, and then it shows you who you can actually vote for so you're not signing the wrong petitions basically. So that's why it's been helpful. And this is where I might actually defer to Garrett now because he is setting up Equal. And so I just wanted him to give an update, or at least what next steps he might be taking.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working with the state elections director, Lisa Mara. She's given me all the information to set up an Equal account. I did all the background work. So it's ready and up for any person who wants to run for town council. They can use it if that's what the council would like to do going forward as an option for any potential candidate to run for office. and I've personally used it. I find the system very helpful. I can see who's running for all the offices I'm eligible to vote for, and I'm not accidentally signing some other person. Like if I live in Congressional District 2, I live right next to Congressional District 5, I could, if I'm at a grocery store, sign the wrong one. But this way, I'm signing the correct one.
So there's no like official action that you have, like there's no ordinance or resolution that's required for that use, but I do think we just wanted to make sure that you're comfortable and that we'll get direction from you that you want to, get to complete setup. And that's also part of that. If you're interested in us bringing back that ordinance about your signature requirements, we would also need to have that sooner rather than later, because obviously that needs to be set up in the system, what the minimum is. So. Also with the candidate filing forms, again, we've been talking about candidates who are circulating petitions, gathering signatures, but again, write-ins don't actually have to circulate petitions, but they also don't get their name on the ballot. So that's the give and take there. But they do have, again, certain forms that they have to file. Okay, so that was essentially just generally about candidate processes. The next part is the staggered terms. Okay, again, this is pursuant to state law. We have a process where the state law allows the town to consider whether or not they want to have staggered 4-year terms. Right now, anybody who's going to be elected in August of next year, the default is always going to be 2 years. So if you keep it 2 years, or if you don't make this, change to, and put it to the voters, every 2 years, the council, all 7, are going to be up on the ballot. And so this particular option basically says you can create that staggered term for 4 years, and really mostly so that you have some continuity on council. Not everyone's turning over every 2 years. So the way that it works is that, let's say you decided you wanted, and it does have to go to voters. It's not something that you can do. You'd pass the resolution to refer it to voters, but it wouldn't go, it has to go to voters at the next election. And we'll talk about that election date as well. But how it would work is in August of 2026, if you had this on the ballot and it passed, then those who were elected in August would essentially, you'd canvass, and probably at that same meeting is then you would divide yourselves by lot. Again, it's by lot, so it's that same sort of chance. That's how we do a tie vote. And so 3 members are going to hold office just for 2 years until 2028, and then 4 members until the next, for essentially till 2030. That's how they create the staggered terms. So there is a bit of a challenge in that anybody who files to run for office next, for the August election is not going to know if it's going to be a 2-year term or a 4-year term, because it's going to be dependent on whether that actually passes. And then it's also going to be dependent, obviously, on what they draw, right? If it's going to be a 2-year or 4-year. And this is how it's structured in statute, the by lot. So we can't really change it, of how we decide who gets the 3 years or the 2 years and who gets the 4. It really is going to have to be sort of a chance. So that's how essentially that part's structured. Yes.
Can a candidate choose to do 2-year and eliminate themselves from the lot? Or?
No, that's the one. There really isn't. It's supposed to be, it's sort of random, right? That's essentially how it's designed in the statute. Now, that doesn't mean that obviously if someone gets a 4-year, it's just like anybody else, right? If there's a 4-year term and somehow someone needs to resign for some reason, or, they're moving or something's happening and they need, then that's when the vacancy statutes kick in, and that's when we get an appointee. And so, if someone felt like they were locked in, they obviously could obviously, resign earlier if they needed to. But there's just no other way to do it because just the way that the statute's designed. So again, but by the time, in 2028, the next group, like I said, that group is going to have the 4 years. So really by 2028, everyone's going to, be elected to a 4-year term. Again, this is just kind of reiterating, after the 2028, everyone's starting the 4-year. Now, I know there was a question about sort of when can these staggered terms, can it be on the earlier ballot, right? And then sort of almost take effect earlier, so that way the August election candidates would be able to choose, right? Which, they know, but unfortunately, it's just not going to work that way. The way that, again, the statute's designed is that you have to be elected, so we have to wait at least to the August election. And then that's when we determine after the canvas, the by lot, who's doing the 2 and the 4. So we couldn't apply this to sort of any of you now, right, as appointees. We do have to wait till that first election, which again, is going to be August. So that's part of the, I would say the difficulty is that if you put it on a May 19th ballot, it's still not going to apply until after the August election. And you're just holding a special election really for, extra cost, but not necessarily getting anything immediate out of it.
So it could be on the May, or it could be put on the August election. So if either one will have the same effect.
Yes, exactly. Again, yeah, so I just kind of walk through this about how it can't really apply to the appointees. We have to wait till after the election. Okay, so that's the staggered terms. Are there any other questions about that one? So the direct election of mayor, again, this is just an option as well. I would say about half of the cities and towns, kind of how what you did at your first council meeting a couple weeks ago, right? Just select from its members someone to serve as mayor. About half of them do that now. And then the other half have the direct election of a mayor. So the voters decide who's going to be the mayor. So state law permits you, again, to refer that question to the voters of whether or not they want a directly elected mayor. So again, this is also sort of a similar question of, can it happen sooner rather than later? Technically, you could refer this again for a special election in May, but it's not going to be able to apply to the August election. And part of that just has to do with timeframes, which I try to include here. So as we kind of talked about, all the elections are just built on deadlines, right? And they're pretty hard deadlines. And so when you look at the May 19th election date, let's say you wanted it on that date, it's not going to be in effect until you canvass, right? So about June, I said early June here. Well, that's already 2 months after the candidate filing has occurred for the August election. And also just a couple weeks before ballots have to be sent to the military voters under the federal law. So we're just not going to have enough time for it to be in effect for someone to actually run for mayor until the August 2028 election. So again, it would be the same as the other, where you could put it on the May, but it's not really going to be effective. So currently, again, all council members serve 2-year terms. So the way that we structured the ordinance was that the directly elected mayor would just also serve a 2-year term. And part of the reason for that is because, again, you haven't received voter approval to go to 4-year terms. So there's a couple different options of what you could do, again, if you want to refer this question. So you could refer it to that August 2026 election date, just for the 2-year term, and that's how it's currently written. If it passes, then the mayoral office will be on the 2028 election ballot for a 2-year term. So if the council at the same time refers the staggered term question in August 2026 and it passes, then the council can later put to voters to basically increase the term of mayor up to 4 years. Because at that point, you'll have authorization. All council members essentially at that point would be serving 4-year terms. And so then you could change the mayoral. And that's essentially how every city and town has done it. We have, again, probably I would say at least 30 cities and towns where they've sort of kept their mayor at 2 years and the council members serve at 4. Then others, have went ahead and made that change and made the mayor also a 4-year term. The other option is that you can just wait to refer a directly elected mayor until you see how the staggered term passes. And then if it passed in August and everyone was on a 4-year term, then when you put it to the ballot, you can put it for a 4-year term. So those are kind of the options for you. Considerations for a May election. So Garrett was great to give me this information. So it's always based on the voters, basically your cost. And anytime you have what we call off-cycle elections, which are not on that primary or general election date, they're going to be more expensive because you can't cost share with the rest of the state and the county and everybody else who's on that ballot. And so you're looking at an approximate cost of $131,000 if you hold a May special election, versus the cost decreases to about 75 cents per voter, if you do wait until the August. Also off-cycle elections, so a May election is a ballot by mail. Typically that's again a cost-saving measure, and the counties just don't have the resources often to start pulling polling places, not for off-cycle. So everyone's just gonna get a ballot by mail. And I know sometimes that's a consideration because people want to have access at the polls. If you want to do a May election for either of those two, we need to know soon, because there's a 180-day deadline in statute that you have to tell the county that you're going to hold an election. So that's going to be next month. So if you wanted to proceed with a May election for either of the staggered or the direct election, we need to bring it back at the next meeting for a vote. Okay, any other questions on those two before I just jump into this prohibition? And this is a very short presentation. I give a whole presentation on this, which I'm trying to spare you that, but I at least wanted to kind of let you know about this because it's just something that's not necessarily intuitive, although it makes sense once it's explained. So essentially we have a statute on the books in Title IX, and it says that the town cannot spend its public resources, and that's anything of value of the town, including staff time, including like right now, right? This is actually a public resource, this particular council meeting. So we can't use anything of public resources to influence an election. And so I wanted to bring that to your attention because again, sometimes it's not really intuitive. So whenever you're looking at, the prohibition, you're wanting to ask yourself, is a public resource being used? And then is that public resource being used to support or oppose an election? So are you advocating for, a candidate, or are you advocating for a ballot measure, like maybe a staggered term or direct election, or advocating against it, or anything like that? So if you can't use a public resource to advocate. Now you do have, you do maintain your First Amendment rights to speak. So you can certainly, advocate on your own personal time. You just can't use a public resource to do it. And so an example I always give is, like you couldn't ask, let's say you put staggered terms on the ballot. You're going to refer that to voters. You make that vote. It's going to go to the ballot. You can't ask Garrett to basically create a FAQ for you of why it's such a great idea to, have that ballot measure passed, right? That would be using a public resource to influence an election. So it's really more just being mindful about what is a public resources, what is encompassed in that, and then making sure that you're not doing that if you want to advocate. And that's one of these things that you can always reach out to us. If you're not sure, we're happy, obviously, to talk to you ahead of time if you have those questions and you're not sure. There are penalties, obviously, for violating the statute. The Attorney General or County Attorney can investigate, file an action against you. Obviously, the civil penalties can be up to $5,000. And also the town is not responsible for that payment, right? It would have to come from your own pocket. I will let you know that at least 6-7 years ago, this was enforced against a couple, I think it was one town in particular, but the Attorney General did enforce. And so we had individual council members who had to pay, a certain penalty because they had taken action at a council meeting to basically, I don't even know if it was to support or oppose, but a statewide ballot measure. They just thought they were adopting a resolution, and that was, they didn't think it was that big of a deal because, again, it's a little confusing. You can do that for legislation, but then you can't do that for a ballot measure. And so, that action was done, the AG enforced against them, and they had to pay the penalty. So it does happen. I just want to put that in your mind, just as we're talking a lot about elections. So are there any questions?
Any questions from the council?
I have a few questions. Would you mind going over the dates and timelines again? I want to, with the signatures and the filing, what are the dates there?
Yes. Okay. So August 4th is going to be the election date as of right now, right, for the primary election. And so everything is what we do when we build the election calendars is basically start with that election date and you just work backwards. And so in this first column here, essentially 150 days to 120 days before the election is when candidate filing starts. And so we typically obviously like to have the candidate packets and all that available a few months ahead of time because we want to make sure people have time to circulate or time to use eQual, whatever that may be. So that's why we're looking at right now timeframes of making sure that we can sort of get some, like the majority votes cast ordinance, if to adopt that really before the end of the year. And if you're going to do a signature requirement change, we would like to bring that back again, sort of as soon as possible as well, because we want to set up anybody who wants to run to let them know what information they need to actually run for office. So, and then April, again, early May is that 10-day challenge window, court action that is taken. And then by late May and June, really the candidate, all that's more administrative, right? The clerk is working with the county to make sure that the candidate names are correct, that all the proofing is done, because again, all the ballots need to start being mailed in June already in order to get everything to the military voters. And then early voting starts 27 days before the election. So it actually moves pretty fast once we're in the election year.
So the dates, March 7th through April 6th, are those is that the window that a candidate can collect signatures?
Oh, no, they can start collecting as soon as they file a statement of interest. So that's a form that sort of like kind of lets everyone know that, hey, I'm potentially thinking of running for office. And you have to file that form first, and then you can start collecting signatures.
So someone interested, can they file a statement of interest now?
They technically could. So that is the other reason why I think we'd like to get some certainty of what direction we're going. So that way, if anyone wants to, Garrett can finalize.
Yeah, I have statement of interest forms available for the town. My email's on the agenda. Shoot me an email. I can send that form over, and then that form gets filed with the clerk's office, and then you can start collecting signatures.
I have another question. Does the signature process apply to also those who are running for re-election?
Yes, so anybody, anytime, so it's always based on your term, right? So whenever your term ends, and if you want to run for election, yes, you have to go through the exact same process every single time.
And then
One more question.
Yeah, one more question. Now, I think I read somewhere that when someone endorses or the signature for you, they're not permitted to sign for somebody else. Is that where there's 7 seats? Is there how does that work?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the number of seats. So in this instance, for next year, and someone in Santan who's a qualified elector can sign up to 7 petitions because there's going to be 7 seats. So yeah, it just depends on, and when you get to, if you decide that you're going to do a direct election of mayor and there's the 1 seat, they can only sign 1 mayoral petition.
That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Any other questions from the council?
Candidate, just one question. Thank you very much for your presentation. So for candidate training, that's something we would want to do, obviously, ahead of the actual signature election dates.
Yes, and I don't know, Garrett, if you have like a process that you because I know clerks have different processes for candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. So I attended a candidate training with the town of Gilbert a couple of years ago, and I've started working on modeling one based off of that for Santan Valley to go over all the basic forms, the timeline of events, and campaign finance 101. I'm sure most candidates, when they run for office, want to put up signs to get their name out of there. There are rules and regulations about signs that candidates should be aware of. So just all the general information. Again, the clerk's office is nonpartisan. We're not going to tell you how to run your campaign, what policy platform, but just all the required information that needs to be all put together.
And the reason I ask that, of course, is because of eQual, which I think will be helpful for the candidates know how to use the system when they start asking for signatures.
Yes, and that would be included, I think, in any.
Yes, I've got a whole guide on how candidates can use eQual, as well as a guide on how the voters can use eQual.
Great. Thank you. Very good. Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you. We appreciate your presentation, Ms. Estes. Okay. So,
Questions for you.
Okay.
I got a question for legal. As we move forward to item 6F, this is just a vote, unless we table it, to just adopt the resolution, correct? It's not like all the different parameters that we just heard about, like changing election dates and times. So,
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Christina.
Oh, with the municipal. So Mayor and Council, so the first item of the ordinance is the majority of votes cast. So that one is really just establishing how you're going to declare your winners at the primary and the general, which again is really just following that formula that's in statute. So that one isn't necessarily a referral to voters. That one is actually adopting that procedure, for determining the winners.
thank you. Good explanation. Appreciate it. Okay, so this is item 6F, discussion possible adoption of ordinance number 2025-02, establishing municipal election procedures. This is a council discussion or possible action to adopt the ordinance 2025-02, which sets forth the election dates, establishes procedures for determining majority vote cast, and outlines the process for runoff for general elections as authorized by ARS 9-821.01. And this is as presented in the presentation that we just heard. So is there any discussion on this item? Questions? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion regarding ordinance number 2025-02?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2025-2 and establish municipal election as constituted.
Member Oaks has a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I second.
Member Jenkins seconds. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry. Motion is carried. Okay. Now we are going to item 6G. This is discussion, possible adoption of resolution 2025-05, ordering and calling an election on 4-year staggered council terms. This is discussion and possible action to adopt the resolution number 2025-05, which orders and calls an election on the August 4th, 2026 primary election date to submit to qualified electors of the town the question of establishing 4-year staggered terms for council members. The resolution provides the form of ballot, outlines division of elected council members into 2 classes for initial staggered terms, and directs the town clerk to provide notice of election as required by law. So do we have any discussion on this item? Any questions or discussion?
Mayor, just a comment. I think that having a 4-year staggered is I believe in the best interest of the council, just because of the, if it's every 2 years, it's a possible turnover of a council every 2 years. I think that would be detrimental to the town. So I believe it's in the best interest to have the 4-year staggered. That's just my thought, but I don't know if anybody has a different opinion on that, but.
Okay, thanks, Member Hunt. Any other?
Mayor, I'd like to echo that comment as well. I think it really establishes continuity, stability, and again, institutional knowledge that can carry over from election to election. And obviously it makes sense to give it to the voters and let the voters weigh in. So I think it's a sensible action.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts, discussion, questions?
I thought I'm in support, but the counter argument would be it gives more people in the community opportunities to serve. So on a 2-year cycle, more people get the opportunity, continuity, opportunity, but issues to think of.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion for resolution number 2025-05?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2025-05, ordering and calling an election on 4-year staggered council terms as presented.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Member Oak seconds. This will be a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Now we're going to go to item 6H. This is discussion possible adoption of ordinance number 2025-03, ordering and calling an election on the direct election of mayor and term of office. This is for discussion and possible action to adopt this ordinance, which is 2025-03, which orders and calls an election on August 4th, 2026, primary election date, to submit to the qualified electors of the town the question of establishing the direct election of mayor and setting the mayor's term of office at 2 years. The ordinance provides the proposed language and form a ballot and directs the town clerk to provide notice of the election as required by law. Any discussion on this item?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor, if I may. It talks about the mayor's term in office being 2 years. We've already talked about giving it to the voters to make the town council 4 years. Is there a possibility of putting it to the voters to make the mayor a 4-year term?
Refer to our subject matter expert.
Mayor and council, so we also looked into this issue as well. There is no specific authorization for us to do this for a direct election of mayor. The way that it's structured is that staggered term is the only authorization that allows you to have a council member term extended from 2 to 4 years. And then if that's passed, then we can go ahead and change the mayoral term, because the council member term will already be 4 years. But there isn't a separate ability for us to essentially put that automatically as a 4-year term.
So it has to start at 2 year.
Correct.
Then it can be changed.
Yes, yes. And again, we have about 30 cities and towns who've never changed it. They keep their mayor at 2 years, whereas others have extended it to 4.
And our adoption of this would mean there wouldn't be a direct election until 2008.
Correct. So yes, mayor and council. So yes, so it would be on the 2026 ballot as the question. And if the voters approve it, then the first election for a direct election of mayor is going to be in 2028.
And Mayor, Council, Christina, just to clarify, so that the council could decide to just wait and see how staggering plays out. And then move forward with a direct election of mayor for a 4-year term.
Yes.
That you could wait would be another option. And what would be the timeline if they decide to go that route? When would?
Yeah, so mayor and council, so if you decide you want to pause on the direct election and see how the staggered term resolution, if voters approve it, then essentially in late 2026, you could make another referral essentially for the 2028 election. We'd probably wait until 2027, but then that's when you could put on the ballot the mayoral term, a direct election for 4 years. Again, that's if the staggered term has passed. And then it's going to be, again, 2028 is going to be the question. So it's not going to be until 2030 that you'd actually be electing a direct elected mayor.
What would happen if the electorate does not select for staggered term?
So if you don't, then you could still put the question of the direct election of the mayor, but it's going to stay at 2 years.
May I have another question?
Yes.
Just enough clarification. Does the direct election of a mayor, the creation of mayoral office, mean an office in addition to the current council as it's constituted, 7 seats, or does that take the place of one council seat?
Yeah, so mayor and council, it takes the place of one of the council member seats. Yes.
And then again, the appointment of the vice mayor would continue through the council itself.
Correct. So mayor and council, it's not direct elected vice mayor, right? That's just something that the council selects.
Okay. Thank you.
So in effect, right now, we wouldn't have to vote. We don't need to vote on this if we didn't want to. That could come at a later date for the mayor's term.
Correct. So what I would say is you could either refer it to the voters now, and then it would, again, just be a 2-year term that would be on the ballot in August of 2026. And then if you wanted to extend that term to 4 years, you'd have to wait 2 years. Or you could just wait, see how the staggered terms, if that even passes. If it does, then you can put it on the ballot in 2028 with a 4-year term if that's the staggered term passes. And then at 2030, you would have a directly elected mayor, someone who could actually run for that office. And then if you want to even just pause, I guess temporarily, we have a little bit of time. So we can bring it back to you. We'd want to do it still before the end of the year.
So that would be us tabling this particular item currently for us to come back, for them to come back and at a later point.
Correct.
question, Mayor?
Yes.
My question is, each time we put something on the ballot, is it a separate cost?
So for the, and I might have to defer to Garrett, but I mean, it typically is because it's the primary and general, you're sharing the cost with a lot of other jurisdictions.
But is it for each one that we?
So the way that the cost structure is with the county, it's based off of the amount of registered voters. Hypothetically, you could put 12 different propositions on the ballot, same cost as if it were one proposition on the ballot.
Any further discussion or questions?
A vote now would mean that we would get it to the electorate sooner, that they could pick.
Sure, if mayor and council, if you vote, I would say like for in the next, 2 months, right? Then yes, it's getting that question to them in the 2026 election versus 2028, which means they can actually vote on a directly elected mayor if it passes in 2028.
Okay, give us just 1 second.
Time's up.
We have a pause.
Evacuate.
Yeah, we do a quick recess. Let's do a 10-minute recess while we figure out our meeting. Be adjourned for 10 minutes.
Cabinet, but it's locked.
Run for the parking lot.
Yes.
They said that.
How are you doing? Freezing.
I love election law.
Freezing. What it is.
Because we have the month.
Probably guess what my license plate is.
Oh, nice, nice.
Things about luck on the kid.
Sure.
You do just think it.
Get a good smack.
Yeah.
Good to jab for doggers.
I think I was his.
I would say.
And he said he served with you.
Yeah, well.
Probably not the end
Absolutely.
I remember the copy. Yeah, what's the brokers, that resolution type stuff.
I got it.
Oh, we were on the mayor. Anyone? Does anyone gonna speak up? Yeah, no, that.
We're not making.
Yeah. You know? Just curious. We aren't like.
That helps. Based off of turnout.
Yeah.
And I believe the statute. It's one. Whichever.
Because honestly, I don't know.
I saw everybody's picture and I ran away. No, that's okay.
Right.
You were the bane of my.
All the hard questions.
Oh, I did an excellent.
Oh, he's thinking.
He questioned every little turn on my map.
I was just making sure it was perfect and ready to
But here
go.
we are, right? Yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, you made it better.
To think
You made
about.
the work better.
It's a club to the public. Oh, thank you so much.
Here
Yeah,
is.
I really appreciate all the work you put in.
Candidates running.
Helping us get back.
And
meeting out of our break. And just to remind everybody that we are discussing, is that item I, 6I, right? Item number 6I, that's yeah, 6H. Okay, apologies. 6H, which is the discussion and possible adoption of the ordinance number 202503, ordering and calling an election on the direct election of the mayor and term of office. And do we have any more discussion from the council on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
just I guess my opinion on this, I feel that
Because people in the back are having a hard time hearing.
I feel that this one, we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. I don't think that putting too many things on the ballot, in my opinion, is unnecessary, especially for the mayor. I feel like this going forward with the staggered terms. And then after we did finish our staggered terms, then putting this back on the ballot later. This is my opinion.
Run?
Yes, if I may. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. So a yes, so just a question, a yes on this, it just allows the public to vote on whether we want to have direct election for the mayor. That's what this is correct.
Mayor and council, yes, for a two-year term.
Right. So if a yes on this and in August, the public says, yes, we want to direct elect for the mayor at that point. At that point, then in the 2028 election, then there will be a mayor elected on the ballot, elected for a 2-year term. Now, before the 2028, can we then change it to a 4-year term or it would be a 2028 that we would say, do we want to change it to a 4-year term?
Yeah, it has to go back to the ballot and
Okay.
have voters extend that 2-year to a 4-year.
So
So
the
your
tw-
2028 would be a question, again, you want to extend this. And then if it passes, 2030 might be your first
Okay.
mayoral for 4.
Okay. So it's my opinion. I think that it would be my opinion. We put this to the voters and let them decide whether we do a direct elect, but that's just my opinion. So.
Any other questions?
Just a point of clarification,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Again, I know I just want to be absolutely clear we have this straight. So there's no way of putting this before the voters, even if we did it in 2028, for the mayor to have a 4-year term initially. It must go to the voters initially as a 2-year term.
As long as you don't have the staggered terms pass yet, and so all of you are still 2-year, we do have to wait
Okay.
to see if that staggered term passes. If that passes and then all councils at 4-year term, then we're essentially, you can put that on because it'll be consistent with what the voters have already approved, which is a 4-year term.
Understood.
I think in my opinion, it seems almost to the point where we wait till we figure out the staggered voting and then put it before the citizens to vote. But that's my opinion on this matter personally. So any other discussion?
It's my opinion that I just think we should put everything we can to the voters as we go. This being an initial one that could be important, and then each one that we build on from there can just keep building on to the 4-year. But I believe this one should go to the voters.
And I think the point there is no matter what, it's going to be a 2-year term in the beginning anyways for the mayor. And then it'll be put on the ballot to adopt a 4-year term limit. So we've got a variety of different opinions on the council. So any additional comments? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion for ordinance number 2025-03? This is the for putting on right now the 2 years for the mayor as opposed to allowing the staggered vote to happen and then the 2-year being implemented then. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move to table item 6H.
Okay, Vice Mayor Hudgens has put a motion. Do we have a second? I will second it. We will go to a roll call vote. Can we get that, Garrett? And if you can, speak loud because the people in the back and we're passing this around the microphone, so.
Councilmember Hunt,
Nay.
Councilmember Jenkins,
Nay.
Councilmember Oaks,
Nay.
Councilmember Tyler,
Nay.
Councilmember Wolfert,
Nay.
Vice Mayor Hudgens,
Aye.
Mayor Schnapp.
Aye.
The vote is 5 nays, 2 ayes.
So the motion is denied. Do we have another motion on the floor?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve ordinance 2025-03, ordering and calling an election on the direct election of mayor and term of office.
Member Hunt has put a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Jenkins seconds. All in, well, let's do a roll call on that one.
Councilmember Hunt,
Aye.
Councilmember Jenkins,
Aye.
Councilmember Oaks,
Aye.
Councilmember Tyler,
Nay.
Councilmember Wolfert,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hudgens,
Nay.
Mayor Schnapp.
Nay.
4-3.
So the motion carries. Okay. Moving on to item number 6I now. This is discussion possible approval of conflict waivers for Pierce Coleman PLLC. It's a possible council action approving waivers addressing potential conflicts of interest arising from Pierce Coleman's representation of both the town of Santan Valley and other public entities, including the town of Queen Creek and certain Pinal County offices. The waivers allow the firm to continue providing legal services related to certain intergovernmental agreements and ongoing Pinal County matters while ensuring transparency and compliance with the Arizona rules of professional conduct. This was presented in our staff report. Every council member should have received this. Do we have any discussion on item number 6I? Any at all? Hearing none, is there a motion for item 6I?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the conflict waivers for Pierce Coleman ELLC as presented.
Member Wolford has a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Vice Mayor Hudgens seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Okay. We will now go to item number 6J. This is a town's update on the 30-day exclusive retainer with IPM or interim public management for the recruitment of the town manager, finance director, and town clerk. This discussion will focus on the status of the recruitment process, potential next steps, and considerations of scheduling a special council meeting. Mr. Quist.
Thank you, Mayor. As the council will recall, at the first council meeting, there was a decision to enter into that 30-day retainer with IPM so that they can commence a search for the positions of town manager, town finance director, town clerk. I wanted to provide the council with an update. I reached out to Tim Pickering, the owner of IPM. He provided a written update, has indicated that they're full swing in their process, screening candidates for these 3 positions and securing commitments on their end. They have had some interested people in all 3 positions. And once the final commitments are secured on their end, they're going to submit resumes to my office. And we're going to look for a time possibly to hold a special meeting of the council where we'd come in an executive session to conduct those interviews. It will most likely be kind of a hybrid situation where there'll maybe some Zoom interviews, some in person. I know IPM has some candidates that may be out of state. But obviously we're going to encourage in person where possible. These are important positions, right? But there may be some that choose to appear virtually. That might be a possibility. I was we were looking at room availability. It looks like the 22nd, October 22nd, there is availability again here. And I went ahead and made a reservation for a special meeting. And I confirmed with Mr. Pickering that he would have candidates available for interviews on that date. My firm can assist in preparing some questions for council to how to conduct that interview process in a uniform and fair manner. And then there would be discussion about the candidates and we'd move on from there as far as whether the council would be interested in engaging in contractual discussions as to one or more of those candidates as far as moving forward. Are there questions on that process? Is there interest to have a special meeting? This wasn't agendized as an action item, but just to kind of get input from the council if a special meeting might be something that you guys are interested in doing, would have availability for on Wednesday.
Discussion?
Do we have any idea of how many candidates they're looking to put forward for each position?
They're looking for, at least 3, I think is the numbers, and town manager, they're going to have candidates. Mr. Pickering indicates that he's pretty confident they'll have those. And I think we definitely would recommend that be the priority, perhaps that and finance director. That's what I've been indicating to Mr. Pickering. So hopefully we can perhaps do those interviews for manager, for finance director.
Have we identified a date for when we would have those resumes?
I don't have a specific date, but it would be prior to the actual meeting on Wednesday.
Any other questions? Discussion? I do. Since we're not sure yet on that date that you have just, the 22nd, was it? We don't need to, we can't do anything yet on that because we don't know the candidates yet that we're going to have to interview, correct? Or is that going to be something that we should try to put down now that as the date open?
Mayor, we should have the candidates. Mr. Pickering is indicating that there will be candidates will be lined up for interviews on the 22nd, if that's what the council would like to do. I don't have the resumes yet, but they will come in before the 22nd. We should have time to call a special meeting if we need to and get those materials out to the council prior to the 22nd.
We don't need to call a special meeting now. It'll come or do we need to do that now? Do we need to put
It's
a
not
motion?
agendized to actually make a
That's
motion,
right.
but if that date, given just guidance from the council, if that date tends to work for most of the council members, I can go ahead and work with the clerk, with Garrett, and we can set a special meeting. We need to send out notices of that at least 24 hours in advance. Since it's a special meeting, I'd like to do it even earlier if possible, just to give notice, although it's not going to have a big public component, that particular meeting.
So I guess the question for the council is, does that date sound something that is doable for each and every member?
What time are we talking?
I was thinking 6 o'clock, but there might be some flexibility on that. That's when the reservation for the room was made. I'm not sure if it's available earlier than that. I'd have to look, but
October 22nd, a week from tonight.
a week from tonight.
It sounds like the consensus is yes, that should
be
work that
available.
day. That should be available. Okay. There's no further discussion on that. We'll move to item 6K. That's a presentation and discussion on decorum and expectations during call to public. Mr. Quist will provide an overview of meeting decorum and expectations during this call to public. Topics include applicable legal requirements, best practices for maintaining order and civility, and procedures to ensure compliance with open meeting laws while allowing public participation. Mr. Quist.
And Mayor, on this item, I am happy to present on it. Given the time and the limitations there, I would not be offended if you tabled my presentation. It won't offend me.
We do have an executive session that is coming up on the agenda, and maybe the recommendation is to table it, but we would need a motion to do so.
Mayor, I motion to table item 6K.
Okay, Vice Mayor has motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Member Tyler. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. We will table this to the next regular meeting, which is going to be October or November. What's the exact date on that? Just so I can get it on the record. November 5th of 2025. Okay. Moving on, we will go to item number 6L. This is a notification regarding town committees, task force, and boards. This is a request that I requested to provide the public with notice that the topic of the town committees, task force, and boards will be discussed at upcoming meetings. Members of the public who are interested in participating in any of these groups or have ideas for specific committees or are encouraged to submit via email to the town clerk, Garrett Glover, and this is his email address. It is Garrett Glover, STV, so GARRETTGLOVERSTV@gmail.com. So once again, those for your interest, comments about committees, please refer those over to the interim town clerk. Okay. We're going to go to item number 7. Under this item, council members may request that topics be placed on future agenda for consideration. So for the record, I want to emphasize that in accordance with Arizona open meeting law, this is not the time to debate or discuss the merits of any proposed item. The sole purpose here is for individual council members to identify potential topics for future agendas without discussion between council members on those items. So the floor is open. Does any council member have any item they would like to be considered for the next regular meeting or in a future agenda? Yes, Member Hunt.
I would like to propose that we is that working? Okay. I'd like to propose that we discuss the option for the town to adopt an ordinance to limit the minimum number of signatures to 1,000. That's all I have.
Okay, did you get that? Okay, any other council member have any other item they would like to have on a future agenda? Any at all? Okay, hearing none. Thank you. We'll go to item 8. This is the call to the public. This is the time set aside for citizens to address the council on any issue within the jurisdiction of the town. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, subject to adjustment if needed, based on time constraints or meeting management issues. In accordance with Arizona open meeting law, the council cannot discuss or take action on matters raised during call to the public. At the conclusion of this item, individual council members may, 1, respond to criticism made by those who have spoken, 2, direct staff to review or follow up on matters, or 3, request that the matter be placed on a future agenda. I have 3 speaker cards. The first one is Jeannie Stockton. If you would please come forward.
Boy, I feel honored. I'm number 1, 2 weeks or 2 meetings in a row.
There's no reward for that.
Okay. Well, you guys all look real nice tonight, and thanks again for letting me speak. I just saw Garrett's email address. And I read it as Garrett G. Lover. STD. Can we go by that
That's my
instead?
nickname already. So
Okay, so I'm stepping up here tonight to let you know that there's a couple of women here in the audience and a gentleman. We have started a Facebook group called Town of Santan Valley. We are trying to get your word out there in a positive manner and ask people in the community to have adult professional conversations. We're not letting people sling mud, et cetera, et cetera. So in doing that, we're taking your messages from here and we're posting them out there. And you're welcome to be on the page, but we don't want you to contribute. We just want you to be mice in the corner, okay? We want this to be a public forum for the people in the community, okay? So Darren, I'll be looking for you to sign up. I already know Gia is on there, so. I did want to also extend that I think you guys are gonna be working your butts off for the next 9 months, right? And we're gonna be watching you over your shoulder real closely. And we might tell you when you stumble and we might just snicker, but we'll all be in it together. I think at the end of the 9 months, July 1st, we should have a party. And I'm telling you, if you want somebody to help you coordinate a party, I'm going to see if Haley will help because she's really good at that stuff. But I would be more than happy to help coordinate a community event that says, hello, Santan Valley, this is us. We're going to have, you know, a big community gathering. We'll have 501c3s, we'll have businesses, we'll have whatever we need. But I think you guys are going to need that party and so am I. And I'm throwing it out there for you to consider funding that because my wallet, I have no pockets and my wallet isn't empty, but I think that's something that you should invest in so that the community appreciates that you appreciate them. So having said all of that, I'm going to shut up and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can we put the council agenda about a party, some sort of inaugurational?
Yes.
Discussed.
Garrett, we'll write that down. We'll have that discussed in a future agenda item. The next one I have speaker card is Sylvia Barrett. Sylvia Barrett.
Good evening. My name is Sylvia Barrett. Congratulations to the mayor, vice mayor, and the council on your new positions. I know you have a big job in building a new town, but along with those stresses come knowing what lies ahead for this region. I'm talking about the Resolution Copper Mine based outside of Superior, Arizona, that will be building a loadout facility and filter plant in the Santan Valley area. The project will be located on 553 acres of private land surrounded by state land. The private land is currently found under the name Integrity Land and Cattle Company, located in Pinal County. The project will entail running 22-mile copper concentrate pipeline from Superior to the area. When this pipeline breaks, as it is bound to do, it will cause an environmental disaster. There will be more rail traffic because once the concentrate has arrived to the area, the water will be drained off and the concentrate will be put on rail cars to be transported out of the area. There will be more noise and more automobile traffic. Also, the final environmental impact statement states that there will be subsidence from 2 to 4 feet. But knowing a bit about subsidence, since I live in a fissure-prone area, I say that figure is not set in stone. The state land will lose some of its value. The subsidence will limit residential growth. And of course, water, we cannot do anything without it. The Resolution Copper Mine will require vast amounts of water. And since Arizona is in more than 22 years of drought, we don't know what lies ahead. Bottom line is that this project is also slated to have 30 wells, known as Desert Wellfield or Desert Wells, along the Marco Railroad corridor, with each well pumping 400 gallons a minute. That is 20,000 acre feet per year, which is over 6 billion gallons of water per year. The mine is expected to last 40 years. So 6 billion times 40 is 240 billion gallons of water. We need our water if we continue to grow this area. If you would like to read the FEIS for yourself, I've got the link, I've got my phone number, and I thank you.
Thank you.
I may-
You want to give it to the clerk?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I've got another.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Next one on the card is Christy Lowen. Did I say that right? Okay. Ready for me.
Apologize for raising my hand earlier because I'm new and this is my first council meeting.
No
So
worries.
I didn't know how it worked, but I did write something up. So good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. As we move forward with the exciting step of establishing our newly incorporated city, we also inherit a responsibility to ensure that our foundational services, especially emergency medical services, are strengthened to meet our unique needs. Currently, EMS operations fall under the Arizona Department of Health Services Certificate of Necessity number 85, with Southwest Ambulance of Casa Grande, known as AMR around here. Very quickly reviewing response times currently under this CON. Casa Grande, Florence, and Coolidge have contracts for ambulance response times stated as 10 minutes, 90% of the time, 15 minutes, 95% of the time, and 20 minutes, 100% of the time. Currently, Santan fits into this CON with response times of 10 minutes, 35% of the time, 30 minutes, 90% of the time, and 45 minutes, 100% of the time. That's a long time to be doing CPR on a loved one or having a medical emergency waiting for an ambulance for transport. Our population density, road access, call volume, and response time expectations must be evaluated and changed to align with our city's size and population, comparable with other cities. This current CON does not reflect or provide for the needs of Santan currently. We must ensure that EMS coverage reflects the city's specific geography, response expectations, and public safety goals so that we are not left with no ambulances within our city of Santan Valley to service our residents. This means negotiating new agreements, amending the existing CON, or seeking localized control through a city-specific EMS model. Our residents deserve timely medical response tailored to our new boundaries. This isn't about disrupting current services, but enhancing them to reflect our city's growing needs. I would ask that we prioritize this conversation before a lack of planning becomes a public safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you would like to discuss an item that you would want on the future agenda.
And Mayor, just as a point of order, typically all the comments will come in and at the end, council members will either respond if there's criticism directed at them or request future agenda items. I don't think it's necessarily legally required to do it that way, but that's the standard practice to get all the comments out and then take any steps after that related to those comments.
Correct. You were correct on that. So at this point, this is all the comment cards I have. I believe we will open it to the public. If there's anyone out there that would like to come forward, please do so. State your name and please state if you are in Santan Valley or another area.
What you guess? No, I'm just kidding. Thank you and great second meeting, everyone. I just want to say congratulations and you all look amazing. I just have a concern on your hiring, which you'll be having the special meeting very soon. Councilmember Jenkins, I'm sorry, had made a motion concerning some of the expenses. And I think that her points were valid. And moving forward, how much is there was a percentage. They had their pros and cons that were shown on the screen. There's a percentage that would be added to the payroll. So you need to find out what that is gonna be. There's a buyout if you choose to hire either any of the three positions. What is that buyout? That's an expense that needs to be made aware to the public. Those are our tax dollars that will be paying for that. I understand that there is no, you don't have any budget right now, but going forward, what is that? That was a huge concern. I wish that could have been tabled until you had all those strong numbers to present to us before you go and make decisions on hiring somebody. So that's all I had to say. I wanted to start positive, but I have those concerns moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? We know who you are, but if you would state your name and where you're from.
Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council. Supervisor Rich Fidiello, District 1. I have a little piece of your guys' incorporation. It's like a corner. I would just. So anyway, I'm here today. I apologize for not making it. I was very sick 2 weeks ago, and I'm sure you wouldn't have wanted me to be here. But anyway, I did want to just come here and congratulate every one of you because I didn't get the chance when you guys were picked. But thank you for doing this. Thank you for stepping up. And trust me, as a former vice mayor of the city of Maricopa, you got a lot of work ahead of you. But I also wanted to stand and let you know, I'm available. I'm here to help you guys. I want to back you guys. I want to make sure that your next 7, 8, 9 months are as painless as possible. So you know you got my support. You know you got the county supervisor's support. The other thing I also wanted to mention is, it may not be something you're going to worry about today, but on future, the state is going, as in the past, come after planning and zoning. And if you do decide to rerun, this will be something that'll be coming up, that if they come after your planning and zoning, I can tell you, the county supervisors will be behind you 100% to stay out of your business. Okay? The state doesn't want the federal in their business. Well, we don't want the state in your business, because guess whose business they get into next? The county's business. And I don't want them in our business. I had a very long discussion with 6 elected up at the Arizona League of Cities, and it turned into an argument, which I'm going to told them, you better bring more on because 60 ain't enough. Stay out of our business. And I just want you to know that we've got your backs, and I'm going around from council to council to do this and let them know that all 5 of us supervisors have your back. God bless you. Good luck. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to come forward? State your name and if you live in Santan Valley.
Yeah, my name is Chris Bodine. I do live here in Santan Valley. Moved out a couple of years ago. I'm a professional engineer, licensed in the state of Arizona for transportation. And so I just would kind of piggybacking on just offering my service to any committee or anything that needs to be done to get that ball rolling for any intergovernmental agencies, anything like that we need to do to proceed with projects to keep Santan rolling and all their infrastructure moving freely.
Thank you. You know where our email is for our clerk. Is there anyone else out in the audience that would like to come forward? Jeannie, you already spoke.
There's an event that hasn't been mentioned.
Can we have her come up and then we'll have you announce the event?
My name is Susan Bustamante and I live here in Santan Valley. I have a few questions. So does that AMRP or whatever that you agreed to their contract? Did you interview anybody else besides them?
We don't answer questions in the call to public, but we can note
Yeah,
your
I'd like to find out
concerns.
because
Yes.
normally, because like I said, I've been on boards and stuff like that. Normally we get multiple bids on, yeah, that's one one question I wanted to ask, because that's being fair to everyone. Okay. And another thing is that you also brought up about why did they choose Wells Fargo? Okay. I think we need to look at other options other than Wells Fargo. That's how I feel because I know Wells Fargo, the 3 largest banks, are probably considered the 3 worst banks. So we really need to look because that's our money. And I want our money saved. Okay, so that's how I feel. But yeah, I liked how you're saying, why did they choose Wells Fargo? It says, yes, so-and-so uses them. I really think we need to sit there and look at other possible options That's how I feel. Cause that's our money. Okay, so that's.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, Jeannie?
Hey Darren, I forgot to mention to you guys, FUSD is sponsoring a trunk or treat on the 23rd. Do you guys have that on your calendar? It's at Johnson Ranch. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Any other comments from the call to public? Anyone out there at all? Okay, seeing none, I will close the call to public portion. I will defer if member Hunt would like to, because you were directed in your direction, if there was any comment you wanted to say. Okay. Okay, very good. So at this point, is there anything that you would like that we heard that you would like the clerk to get on a future agenda?
It's somewhat related, but I'd like to have EPCOR give us a presentation so that we know the sustainability of the water here in Santan. And about the electricity, you know, the solar stuff and things like that. So if we can get that on there one day, that's good. Thank you.
If we're gonna have EPCOR come, I think we should have Queen Creek Water come as well because they also provide water to Santan Valley.
Thank you, council members. At this point, we will proceed to item 9. This is before we get a motion to go into executive session on this item, I would note that the following items the council will convene back into open session, and it is anticipated there will be no further business before the council tonight other than adjournment. So with that said, is there a motion to go into executive session?
Mayor, I motion that we move to executive session.
Member Tyler has a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Member Jenkins second. We are now in executive session, and that will be in the room right behind us. It's not just one.
For sure. I know. I'm glad you have it's on the deck. Where my email was today. This is my county card. That's got my phone number. Sir?
Yeah, so we kind of have to, he's got.